Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of the Better World Challenge podcast. In this episode, I interview Carrie Copeland, Program and Education Director at Food for Lane County. In our conversation, you're going to hear insights on the challenges of food insecurity, the importance of community and partners to achieve a mission, and why, as a culture, we need to normalize that it's okay to ask for help. So let's dive in. Hi, I'm Justin Furtado, a social entrepreneur with a passion and experience in community engagement and philanthropy located in Eugene, Oregon. It's our responsibility to take care of our communities, have uplifting conversations, and make the world a better place. You're listening to the Better World Challenge podcast. Welcome to the Better World Humans podcast, Carrie. It's great to have you on. My first question for you is, what inspires you when you wake up and get out of the bed in the morning?
This is a super fun question, Justin, because I got to think about why my job is so cool, because I think I work for an amazing agency and we do amazing work. And we work with the most amazing people to do that work. So Food for Lane County works with a network of partner agencies. There's over 160 agencies across Lane County that help us get food to the community. And so we work with a team of staff who are just totally dedicated to getting the food and programs out. Volunteers support all of our programs and all of our partners, and then all these really cool partner agencies that are doing such great work in the community. And so I just get super excited about that. It's relationship building with the coolest people in our county that do just such amazing work to help us have a healthy Lane County. So it's really easy to get out of bed and come into work every morning.
It's those relationships that really drive that meaningful work. And can you talk a little bit about your journey to getting to where your position at Food for Lane County, and what inspired you before you were at Food for Lane County, and maybe meandered and navigated you to where you are now?
Yeah, I did not have a traditional nonprofit start necessarily. I was kind of directionless as I graduated from college. My degree is actually in environmental education. And so I moved to Eugene to work at Northwest Youth Corps, where we did job training and youth development in the woods, put a tool in a kid's hands and show them how to do the work, and they learn that they can. And that was really inspiring, amazing work. I did that for about 8 years, and I learned a ton of leadership skills and climbed up the ladder to work in leadership there. And then I paused to be a stay-at-home mom. And at some point, my husband was like, you need to go back to work. We need a little more income. And so I was looking for a part-time job, and I actually started working for Cornerstone Community Housing, which is an awesome affordable housing company here, or program based here in Eugene. And I did resident services. So I always consider it kind of to be like Julie on the Love Boat and low-income housing. So we were running cool programs and developing relationships with low-income individuals in these properties. And it was my first time doing direct service and really learning about what it's like to be food insecure. And I had my own experience with food insecurity as a student and as a stay-at-home mom. Our budget was just, so thin. We qualified for food assistance, but I didn't even know that that was a thing. And so it was really a great eye-opener for me, and just learned a lot of humility about what it's like to live in poverty. And so that was a great opportunity, but then another one became open at Food for Lane County. It was a coordinator position working with the partners, and it paid better and it had insurance. So it was like this great moment for me to, expand in my capacity. And so I started working in that capacity and loved it. And that's where that relationship building with all these amazing partners began. And I just loved it. It's this bird's eye view of this super cool support network here in our community. And then I actually had an opportunity for even more leadership at Cornerstone. And so I joke that they headhunted me. I got to go back and work with them as a program director, bringing community health workers and health programming into their programs at their affordable housing communities. And that was awesome. But then that ended, and I landed back at Food for Lane County in a position similar to what I'm doing now. I supervise some of our education programs, as well as the department that oversees our relationships with partners. So it's sort of been like a zigzaggy between housing and food, but those things are so tied together that it has made sense. And it's been a really great journey.
Yeah, I do believe that those are super intertwined. And I think you touched on the exposure to poverty at Cornerstone Community Housing, and all these community experiences are kind of adding on top of each other. And you have this background of education. Can you give us a quick crash course on food insecurity, why it's so important, and what it does to families or people?
Yeah. I don't know if there's such a thing as a quick crash course on that, because food insecurity is so challenging and it's so pervasive, and it's also totally hidden, right? Because we all as human beings need food and we need access to healthy food and we need to know how to prepare it. And there's a lot of things that can get in the way of that. And also, food is actually relatively inexpensive when you are also trying to juggle paying for your housing or your health care. Um, so I have heard community leaders talk about that as like the three-legged stool. And if one of those legs is gone, then the others have to give. And I think food is like the first thing that you can give up, because you can always go, all right, instead of buying these beautiful oranges, I'm going to buy ramen this week because at least my belly will be full. So I think food insecurity is not just it's not just not having enough food in your home, it's also not having nutritious food. And we know that when you can't access nutritious food, your healthcare will suffer, right? So, yeah, that's my first thought about food insecurity. And I think it's invisible because we don't know what our neighbors are eating. And someone that is making three figures might be leveraged so heavily that they actually are food insecure. And they might actually suffer more food insecurity than that person that's living on a minimum wage job or social security benefits, who is managing their money differently and maybe has access to other resources or knows how to shop on a budget. So it's really hard. I think there's huge stigma in our community around food insecurity. And we hear this from our participant advisory council, that they feel like they're being shamed by using their SNAP benefits or by going to a pantry. And yet this could be any one of us, right? Like my family could be a huge medical bill away from being totally food insecure, you know? So it's invisible. And I wanted to share that Food for Lane County serves the entire county through our network of partners. And this is a really stunning number, but 1 in 5 people in Lane County live below the federal poverty level. And this is from 2018 data, so it's a little old. And it's probably changed significantly since COVID. And in 2019, Food for Lane County served about 1 in 4 households in Lane County with, our partner, our network of partners did. That's a lot of our county, right? That's your neighbor, that's your kiddo's friend, and we don't know this about each other and we don't see this. So hunger is everywhere, and hunger definitely impacts every demographic, but some demographics are more heavily impacted. And I think that's in the news a lot more now with COVID, right? We know that the Black community, the Latinx and migrant community, the Native community, the LGBTQ plus community are all more heavily impacted by hunger. And then also, anytime there's the intersection of any of those, we know that that demographic is even like way more impacted because of barriers. And those might be based on structural racism or lack of transportation or being homebound because you're living with a disability. So there's just so many things that get in the way of accessing food.
Yeah, and those barriers, like I'm thinking of the three stools, and then once you started tilting, you're off balance, and maybe that puts a burden on you because of your health isn't as good, and it's just a continuous spiral of an uphill battle to just try and just survive. And how does Food for Lane County like address some of these equity issues in your programs?
We do our very best to get food out equitably across Lane County. So we assess Every couple of years, we assess poverty and hunger statistics. We use census tract data and survey information. Lane County has some great info on their website right now that we're hoping to use in our next assessment. We're looking for pockets of need. And then we also work with a participant advisory council, which we try to recruit and bring on council members from any and all demographics, including rural, which can be harder. We try to serve them a meal, and so if they're coming from Oak Ridge, that is a barrier. So we try to help support the council members with transportation and a stipend when we can. But at any rate, we're trying to get the community's feedback about where the pockets of need are, or what parts of our program aren't working for every demographic. We also ask our partners every year or two. With COVID, we took a pause. The same information to just try to understand areas we can improve or pockets of need that we're not meeting. We bring on new partners all the time, and we actually have criteria right now that new partners need to be serving a marginalized population, which can include like children and elderly, as well as Black, Latinx, LGBTQ plus. So we're just intentionally trying to make sure that we are prioritizing the communities that are most impacted. We also, through our contracts with the USDA, require all staff, volunteers, and our partner agency staff and volunteers to undergo annual civil rights training. And we have a complaint process so that if someone feels that their civil rights were trodden upon, that we can move in and support our partners to make sure that any identified changes can be made and will be made, so that clients have access to equitable service and equitable food across the county. We try to have bilingual signage, and all of our partners are required to have a plan to be able to communicate with non-English speakers. So we're doing our best. There's always room for improvement, and we're scanning and trying to improve constantly as we go.
It sounds like, yeah, there's a lot of intention of like being equitable in the way not only you're serving, but your community partners that you're with, and their education and this civil rights training. There's obviously more than one component to equitable work, and I think that's wonderful. I have a follow-up question on community partners and how important they are to the work you all do.
Yeah, we do not operate without our partners. It is an absolute symbiotic relationship. Food for Lane County, when you see it, it's the FOOD are all capitalized, and it's this really weird 80s acronym. It's Food Organization of Distributors. So that's like some 80s terminology that no one knows what it means. But when Food for Lane County was started, I think it's 1984 is when we first incorporated, or not incorporated, when we first started. We made an agreement, like a gentleman's agreement with all the other nonprofits, that we would be the agency that was going to solicit the food and warehouse it and then make it available to our partners so that they could focus their efforts on the other things that they were doing. So we work with 34, I think we have 34 pantry partners across the county right now. And we also work with meal sites, but we also work with other agencies like Cornerstone Community Housing or Women's Space or HIV Alliance or NAMI. They are agencies whose mission is not food, but the food supports their mission. And so we want them to be able to focus on their mission. So we want to get the food to them. And so we're really counting on them to do that work. And then they count on us for the food. We are one of the few food banks, I think there's only 2 in Oregon, that don't charge any money for that food. Other food banks charge like 15 cents per pound or something to help cover the transportation and logistics. But we have such a generous donor base that we've decided to give that money, keep it towards our programs so that we don't have to charge the partners, because the work they do is just so critical.
It seems like such a great community effort to be able to provide people with nutritious food, because I hear you say food supports their mission. I think, oftentimes it's when you're running a certain nonprofit, it's like, okay, now we have to spend part of our budget on food. And, that doesn't get to go to the services that we want to provide. I'm thinking in particular to the Boys and Girls Club where I work. And, we were buying food at Costco, but now that Food for Lane County is providing us snacks, we can allocate that money that we were using for snack on arts and craft supplies for the kids. Like something like that just really helps different community organizations, and it goes to show how important you all are and the work that you all do, which is probably what also inspires you when you wake up out of bed in the morning, which
Totally.
is amazing. So what I know you've talked a little bit about it. You have programs for youth, programs for seniors. Can you talk a little bit about some of the programs that you all have?
Oh my gosh, I could talk endlessly because they're so cool. I had no idea how much Food for Lane County does until I started working there. Um, let's see, our senior programs include the Eugene area Meals on Wheels, and the huge network of volunteers help us get food to shed-in seniors. There's a monthly food box that goes to seniors through their housing, or even just a direct delivery. That's called Senior Grocery. And there's over 450 seniors that receive a monthly food box from Food for Lane County. We have some youth nutrition programs. One is Snack Pack, which is like a little Ziploc bag that's filled with kid-friendly food. And we get that out through the schools. Uh, Teachers identify kiddos who might be food insecure over a weekend or a holiday, and they slip them into backpacks. And during COVID, Trillium Community Health has funded us to get even more out. And we're working with school lunch programs and some of our rural pantry partners to get this food out to these kiddos, to make sure that they've got kid food that they can make themselves. We also have a program called Cereal for Youth. It's this amazing donation from Attune Foods. They give us these little 2-ounce packages of cereal. It's like a granola based cereal, and it is free to us that we pass on to our partners. It goes out to schools and after school programs and housing. Only kids can eat it, but I did get a kid to share it with me once, and it's very tasty. It's been amazing. We've heard from teachers that it helps kiddos pay attention and be able to not be hungry, but like sit still and engage in schoolwork. So that's a really cool program. We operate 2 gardens/farms. One in Springfield, the youth farm, is a job training program for low-income teenagers. Um, those kiddos actually help run a CSA program as well as a farm stand. So they're getting retail experience and they're learning like the whole farming process. Those kids are amazing. We bring some back every year to be crew leaders. So they're getting like even more leadership experience. And then Grassroots Garden is a collaboration with the Master Gardeners. So it's an education garden. And between those 2 gardens, they donate over 100,000 pounds of fresh organic produce back into the emergency food system that our partners distribute. Just super cool. We have a nutrition educator who's working with different partners, and a bilingual educator that works with her to teach people like where to access food, how to create a healthy menu, living on a budget, about nutrition support like SNAP or WIC, just really helping people connect to the food as well as how to prepare it and enjoy it. We have a job training program that teaches people warehouse skills to get a living wage job at the end. And it's small, but it's mighty. We've got a pretty good success rate with employment for our graduates in that program. Gosh, what else? We have a great program called Produce Plus, Trillium Produce Plus. They sponsor this program, and it is produce, hard produce and bread, and sometimes more, that's in places that people are at. For example, health clinics, DHS offices, schools. So if someone comes and they need a little food, they can just grab it. It's like the lowest barrier program. And it's really neat because people don't have to like hop on the bus to go to the pantry to get the food. If they go into DHS to apply for food stamps, SNAP benefits, they get that food right there.
I think that's really cool. And I'm imagining a lot of times I think in terms of like a circle and a web, and it seems like you all are providing so many different services. It's job services, it's a garden, it's, community partners. It's like they all kind of play on each other, and you're just playing this big role in the Lane County community, which I think is amazing. And Are there any stories that you can share of like humans being like directly impacted by the work that you all are doing?
I had fun thinking about that also. I think I supervised the job training program for a couple years, and that is amazing. It's people who access food supports or SNAP or TANF benefits, and we have actually 5 people in our warehouse working for us now that graduated from that program. So they were unemployed, some of them unhoused, and now they have a stable job and an income, and they're able to kind of like, set their feet on the ground and start making forward progress in their lives. So that to me is sparkly. That's sort of, we think of that as like food tomorrow. There's food today and there's food tomorrow. And so that food tomorrow is like, food forever. A food today example, I at one point ran our mobile pantry program, and we were up in Notai, which is by Culp Creek in Dorena, really, really impoverished corner of our county, for some of the folks that live up there. And I had someone come up to me and thank me for this once a month pantry, because they said that they ran out of food in their house, and they did not know that if they were going to have food for the rest of the week, and that without the pantry they probably would have gone hungry. That's pretty humbling to know that you're able to help a family just stabilize and have food for the rest of the week. Gosh, there's so many cool stories. We get thank you notes from some of the diners at our dining room program. I didn't talk about that, but we operate a meal site in downtown Eugene, and we'll have diners, in non-COVID, it's a sit-down meal. And diners will write thank yous on napkins. And we actually got a thank you from a diner who had been accessing the food while living on the streets, and then had connected with, another supportive partner in Eugene, and had gotten some help getting sober and some job training, and had stabilized, and they came back and wanted to volunteer and wanted to thank the dining room for giving them that space to just sit and have a meal in a safe place. So also super humbling, right? Pretty cool. You want
That
more?
is
I have more.
that is very humbling, and I think there's probably an endless amount of stories that you could share with us, which is really a testament to the work you all do, and the actual like impact you're having on human lives, and elevating them out of poverty, or at least just giving them some adequate nutrition that all humans need to survive. So I really appreciate that and the work that you all do. And my final question is, how can the listeners support Food for Lane County and just learn more about food insecurity?
Thank you for asking this question. It's awesome. My um my first response is, if your listeners, I mean, there's obvious ways to help, which are donate food, donate money, because that helps us with our work. But right now, in light of COVID and our anticipation that we're going to see people needing to access food that never have had to before, it would be awesome if your listeners could help us with our messaging that it's okay to ask for help, and that Food for Lane County and our network of partners are here to help you. And so there's information, there's there's a map of all the pantries and meal sites that lives on our website. And if they can just help share this thought with their neighbors and their friends and family, that it's okay to ask for help and that help is here, that would be really awesome. I mean, we're just a little nervous about what's to come related to COVID and our economy. And so I think that's my biggest message.
Spread the word, stop the stigma, and support Food for Lane County. Thank you so much for your time today, Carrie. I really enjoyed our conversation.
You're welcome, and thank you. This was really fun. I appreciate it, Justin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of the Better World Challenge podcast. In this episode, I interviewed Carrie Copeland, Program and Education Director at Food for Lane County.